December the 13th City Council study session to order. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our City Administrator, Mr. Jim Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll be covering three items this evening for the council and for our citizens. The first will be the City Council meeting agenda for next week. The second item will be the department details given by our department heads. And lastly, I'll turn it back over to the mayor for Mayor's Matters to talk about things that are here in town. So with that, I would draw your attention here to the draft council meeting notes for next week. And I'll start with item number 5, where the mayor is going to recognize the winners of the writing contest here within our school district here in North Augusta. And I'll pause unless, Mr. Mayor, you have any comments on that?
Just excited. We had some really good responses, and we'll have copies for council in the packet going out. So I'd like y'all to read it before then. And actually, I think you'll agree with me. There are a couple of ideas I think we can implement. They don't cost money. That's all I've got, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll move on to item number 6 under Engineering and Public Works, which is ordinance number 2021-22, amending Chapter 14, Article 5, Division 3 of the City Code of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina. So that is a ordinance we wanted to have to clean up a few of our items here, I believe, within stormwater. And Tom, is there anything you wanted to put on the table here for the group here tonight, or no? Okay. Do you have any questions from the council members about just the update to this code for engineering public works? Okay. We'll move into item number 7 under annexation, ordinance number 2021-23. Change the corporate limits of the City of North Augusta by accepting the petition requesting annexation by the landowners and annexing plus or minus 43.9 acres of land located on West Martintown Road and owned by Adams Brothers Properties, LLC, ordinance second reading. So as you recall, this has been in front of the council previously. This is for a parcel of land that is on Martintown Road that is north of I-20 and is just above Gregory Lake Road. So as you pass along Martintown Road, if you made the right to Gregory Lake Road, that would take you up kind of along the line there, but you would continue up Martintown Road, and it's at the very end of the city limits. And so this is a contiguous property and can be annexed because it is contiguous to the city. And this was at the request of the landowner and not through any kind of forced annexation. So I know we've had this one on the docket before and we've talked through it, but I'm certainly ready and willing to take any of your questions if you have any residuals. Okay, we'll move on to item number 8, which falls into zoning, ordinance number 2021-25, to amend the zoning map of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina by rezoning plus or minus 1.63 acres of land owned by Second Providence Baptist Church, Aiken County tax parcels 006-20-06 and its parcels 003, 004, 005, and 006 from R10 medium lot, single family residential to GC general commercial ordinance. And again, this is also a second reading. We had discussed this previously, and this is to allow the church to potentially expand further down the line with the number of properties, and this was to allow all of those properties to be zoned in a similar fashion so it can be consistent and allow the church to expand if that is their desire. Again, this is one we've talked about previously, but I'm certainly open to any of your questions on this topic if there are any concerns. Okay, we'll move on to, I'm going to cover items number 9, 10, and 11. Those are all linked, and these have to do with public safety, so I'll read those. And the first is ordinance number 2021-24 to authorize the purchase and financing of radios for the Department of Public Safety, second reading ordinance. And again, this is a ability for the administrator and the team to be able to procure These radios, in conjunction with the county provides 75% of the cost of the radio procurement through the 911 fund, and that is based on money that they receive through landline telephone connections as a fee. And so the city of Aiken has already taken advantage of this program. And so we're going to be able to draw from a little over $300,000 that's available in this calendar year. And that will continue to be a rolling fund that we'll continue to draw money from. And Cammie Hayes, our finance director, was able to find good financing terms outside of Motorola, which will be beneficial for the city. So I appreciate her getting us a good option there. And so I will ask you to hold your questions on those, and I'll go through the next two because these are all bundled, if you will. And so the second item, which is item number 10, resolution number 2021-47, which is a resolution approving financing terms for the financing of public safety radios. Again, that's a Cammie Hayes crafted resolution in order for us to enter into that arrangement. And lastly, under item number 11, also public safety, resolution number 9 and 10 are the only bundled. 11 is a public safety item, but not for radio. So 9 and 10 are radio related. So I'll pause for any questions here on our public safety radios. Again, this is to replace the handheld and the motor vehicle bound systems into the upgraded Motorola radios. Our current radios are over 10 years old. For my time in the Department of Defense, normally you're looking at a 7 to 10 year life cycle span for handheld and other type of radios of that caliber. And so ultimately we're overdue, and our intention is to swap these out, which will be a benefit for the public safety. And I know Chief has been after me for a while to get this done, so I'm sure he'll be excited to have this finished out.
Cammie did a great job on getting us the rate. I mean, the financing terms are very attractive, it looks like.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Cammie.
Yeah, that's the one thing I noticed too, the 1.51%, that seemed like that was a really good competitive financing rate, so that was exciting. And then the only notes I didn't really have any questions, but I know it's a need for the department, so we're excited to kind of get this moving forward. And I saw that there's a lot of trade-ins, so that's kind of on the contracts too, so we can trade in a lot of the stuff that we currently were using. Is that correct?
I'm not sure how much money they give us for the trade-ins, Councilwoman, but yes, I think we get to trade in.
I saw it on the light on them, so I was like, oh, that's nice. Yeah, so that's good. Yeah. And hopefully the next round will be good for 10 years. The next round.
And for information, the county is supposed to approve the intergovernmental agreement at their meeting tomorrow night.
Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate it. And again, that's an important component of this, is because they're a large financing partner on this. Any other questions or comments about our public safety radios? Okay, with that, I'll move on to item number 11, which is under public safety, but a different item entirely. And that's resolution number 2021-48, resolution authorizing an asbestos abatement services contract for city-owned property at 1208 Georgia Avenue, site of new public safety headquarters. And so just to kind of set the conditions here for our discussion about the public safety headquarters, once we have our headquarters out for bid, that will fall underneath a different contracting vehicle, if you will. What we're trying to do now is to save the city money by using city crews. So as you've seen, our public services crews under James Sutton's and Roy Kibler's direction and others have cleared a large portion of that site. In order for us to finish clearing the motel portion of that, the floor tiles in the motel are asbestos. The rest of the facility is actually very good, but the floor tiles are asbestos, and that has to be abated. And so what we have is a low bid. We went through multiple vendors, and the bid that we have in front of you is the one that we're looking to pursue. And so what that would allow us to do is, if passed by the council next week, we would immediately move into that abatement contract and have that work done in early January, which would then allow our city crews to finish the work on the site to remove the motel. Again, we do this because we believe this is financially advantageous for the public safety headquarters to have our own folks do it where we can. And then as we move into the bidding process, other work that will happen on that site will become nested within that contract. So that's why you're seeing a separate action here in front of the council, because this, again, is trying to save money in the long run for the building. So I'll pause for any questions on that particular item.
Covered good.
Okay. We'll move into item number 12, and I'll probably ask Cammie to come up and give us a 30-second blurb on ATAX. But we're going to be doing a resolution number 2021-49, a resolution authorizing funding allocation recommendations of the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee, the disbursement of revenues from the Accommodations Tax year 2020 to 2021. And for a reminder for our folks at home, there's different buckets of money, if you will, and different rules associated with those buckets. But accommodations tax and hospitality tax are controlled by state statute of how those funds can be dispersed, unlike general funds, which can be allocated directly by the council based on their priorities. And so if Cammie's got anything you'd like to add, if I missed anything. No? Do you have any specific questions, Mr. Mayor, for the team?
Just the only questions this first time for me. I'm just curious, just logistics, do we automatically, first of the year, we send in the check? Do they actually spend the money first and then invoice us? How's that? I'm just wondering how that works.
Cammie's going to come up to the mic and explain that.
Just logistical, I was just curious.
That's okay. Just to clarify, so the portion that you're looking at for this resolution, accommodations tax, is the state accommodations tax. So the city also has a local accommodations tax that's handled completely different. So the state has requirements for you to create the advisory committee and has special requirements on how these funds are dispersed. The Tourism Expenditure Review Committee, they're known as TURC. So they are the ones that administer these funds. They're the ones that we report to, and they look at who did we award money to, what did those folks do with the money. We do require that the money be spent up front, and they have to submit copies of what they've done. So they have to prepare a packet and turn it into us. They need to use the North Augusta's tourism label, logo on anything that they advertise or promote. And they have to prove that they've spent it on the appropriate things that they were awarded the money for. So then at that time, the city would do a reimbursement to the organization.
Thank you.
Any questions remaining questions from the council on that item? Okay, thanks for clearing that up, Cammie. We'll move to item number 13. Under city property, ordinance number 2021-26 to convey a portion of tax parcel 005-13-06-004 to the Wanda Woodlands Property Owners Association. This is an ordinance which will be the first reading. This is for a fairly small parcel. It's a plus or minus 0.17 acres there in Wanda Woodlands for the purpose of allowing them to develop that for common space and for recreational purposes, along with a detention pond, which will not be impacted by this deed over. And so either Tom or Tommy might be able to handle this better as far as what they're actually getting done on here. But this is a request by Wanda Woodlands, not us pushing this property onto them.
Doesn't mess up anything with our detention. I'm fine with it.
Tom looks as happy as I've ever seen him.
I can respond to that. This will not incorporate the detention pond. This is a sliver of property that will run alongside it. Do you hear static? Okay.
First time I heard it when you turned your microphone.
True.
Thank you, Rachel.
All right, subject to any other questions? You've also got under city council items, this is a typical item we put at the end of the calendar year, and this is the City of North Augusta City Council meeting schedule and notice, January 2022 through December 2022 council approval. So again, this lays out the various dates and holidays and the things that are important for us for the business of the city. It's a routine action, but one that is required, my understanding, is Kelly's giving me the eyeball here, so yes.
It's a full year requirement. Have to give notice of the dates and times of meetings scheduled.
So a routine housekeeping item, but an important one. So any questions from council members on this one? Okay, we'll move into item number 15 under Economic Development. Resolution number 2021-50, which is a resolution to enter into a memorandum of agreement for participation in Main Street, South Carolina. And so the Main Street program that we have in conjunction with North Augusta Forward, where they are the executive agent for the Main Street program locally through their executive director. The Main Street program hosted at the South Carolina at the state level requires that as you move from a initial status of the first 3 years and you move into what they call classic status, that you update a number of things, and this is one of those requirements, which is a memorandum of agreement between the city and between our partner in this particular case, so that they can remain and we can remain part of the Main Street program, and we hope to advance the goals of the Main Street program here as we move forward, but this is an important step for us to be in compliance with the state Main Street program as we move forward.
We're going from high school to college, next level. Okay.
Junior college, sir.
Junior college.
So in that graduation, I guess, and moving on to higher education, I just want to make sure I understand, and a lot of the initial part of the Main Street program was started before I got on council. We've gotten a few updates since then, but I'm not really sure that I understand, and I think it's beneficial for those listening, if there's anybody out there listening, to understand as well. Some of the objectives, especially the agreements that the city is making, and that the board is making, having a downtown manager and those sorts of things, are those in place, or will those be put in place by this? And if so, what's the process for enacting? I mean, a board of directors specific to this, a downtown manager?
Well, this is a very general, so that has already happened because Avery Spears is considered that planning director.
Okay.
I mean, planning manager, okay? And the board is already in place, so all that is through the North Augusta Board, so it's not anything, the real concern for us, not the concern, the real issue for us is what Jim and Rachel are working on with the North Augusta Board, specifically about the memorandum for what we're trying to do in North Augusta, as far as the downtown piece.
Right.
But this is pretty much a generic, my understanding is no matter what city you have, it's the same template.
Okay, and I understand that. I guess I just wanted to be sure, are those positions actually in place? Are they funded? Do they comply with the
Yes.
standards in here as they are?
That's
Which is spending her
I asked that
percent
same
of time?
question, and we're not having to go out and hire anybody from the city. It's
Okay.
already done through North Augusta Forward.
So,
Because a lot of municipalities are the actual agent for
Right.
Main Street.
right, they're not the board though, because this
No,
agreement doesn't allow
they would
them
have to
be
have
the
a board if
So
they
that
were doing-
board is, North Augusta Ford is that board, or is there a
Yes,
board outside?
North Augusta
So North
Ford.
Augusta Ford's board
Is the
is
board.
that board.
Yes.
Avery then is the downtown
Director.
manager,
The
director.
yes.
Okay.
Good questions.
All right, so then I guess, I mean, really then, nothing changes? I mean, is that I mean, we're encoding what was already done and signing, I mean, I guess I'm
think
trying to
we're
understand.
kind of making it more official.
Okay.
So in order for the program to be moved into the classic realm, in order to continue with the Main Street program, this was one of the requirements that MASC's Main Street director Jenny Boulware has enacted based on what they got from the national chapter, if you will, and so ultimately this allows us to continue with the classic. It doesn't specifically lock us into anything. It does kind of codify some of the existing relationships that we have, and that the roles and responsibilities there of what the downtown manager does, and is again not a city person there. So if you look under Article 1, and it talks about if the position is a city or town staff position, then you must do this, or if the city is a city town staff position. In our case, it's not.
Right.
That's not what's happening. We have an outside partnership with North Augusta Ford that fulfills those roles.
Yeah, okay, and I understand that. So I guess my next question then is, again, looking at the city's agreement, what we're agreeing to do, and it sounds like we have been doing it. And I want to preface this by saying I'm a fan of North Augusta Ford. I appreciate what they do. I'm glad they're running this program. I'm a fan of the program. But just to make sure that I understand, how it works. We're acknowledging, obviously, that they're serving as the board for the local Main Street program. We're not going to serve as that board. It also says acknowledge the boundaries for the target area of the local Main Street program. I'm sure that's been established, but I'm not sure that I know what those are.
That is basically from the river up to Lookaway, Rosemary Hall, over to West Avenue, and East.
In East, yeah.
In East, okay. And
And
then,
a lot of that was part of the application that they had to submit.
well, and I figured a lot of this stuff had already been. I just want to make sure that I understand it and that the public understands it. And then with North Augusta Ford, and I know some of like the benches and stuff that we funded here in the past, I think that was an initiative that came from this. Some of the things we're doing, funding the additions,
Amenities.
the amenities downtown. But as far as, just oversight and direction and guidance and benchmarks and evaluation of those benchmarks and those sorts of things, is North Augusta Ford completely in charge of handling that as a city? And where is that connection between the city and the board?
Good question. I
Sure.
think this is one of the pieces that I'm glad that we're doing, because in the last 6 months or so, as we started moving toward the downtown piece, Jim and Rachel have been meeting with Avery and Jim. We actually met with the executive committee once. So I think this does make it a little bit more structured to where North Augusta Ford and the city are on a routine schedule. So I think it codifies that a lot more.
Okay.
So I think it's all positive, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think maybe possibly what you might be looking for is maybe like an update on what's been actionably happening, because things like Third Thursday and all that fall
Yes.
into it too. So there's a lot of components that
Yeah,
are
and-
in
and I-
action, but maybe council just needs to see that.
Well, and one of the good things in here, I do think that, one of the responsibilities of both the board and the downtown manager is maybe some more robust reporting to us so that we are a little more in the loop as to what's going on.
I think basically the entity originally applied for the application, and one of the requirements was that North Augusta Ford had to have approval from the city that, hey, we're going to allow you to proceed. And most everything fell on North Augusta Ford as far as regarding that. Now, I think this just puts a structure in place that where we are now, this is a partnership. And now the city is saying, through this document, is saying, yes, we're now working together. Even though we already were,
Yeah.
it just kind of,
It codifies that a
Yeah.
little more. Yeah, and
Would you
I'm
agree with
good
that,
with
Jim?
that. Yeah, okay, well, and that's what I want to hear. I want it to be a partnership. I want us to, I understand that they're the board of the director and they're guiding it, but certainly our leadership, on whatever level, whether that's admin or whatever, just, needs to be involved in that process. And I think it's good for us and the public in general to understand, again, what those benchmarks are that we're striving for in a more, not just in a reactive way as they come to us, but in a more focused and planning way.
I agree.
Councilman, I would say also for you and the rest of the council, where you are shaping things really comes from a resourcing perspective. So ultimately, a lot of the things that we're doing here in the next 12 months, if you will, you help move along, if you will, like through the budget process. So the fact that we're going to do the LED lighting, in the downtown corridor, that's a budget item that you vote on. The separate action that the council took about allowing funds out of the capital projects fund to fund the amenities piece, that's something that comes to you for visibility. So I think what you're going to see is in the future as well is that you do have an opportunity as a council member to help shape what the outcomes are in the partnership with North Augusta Ford and the downtown program, because ultimately the vast majority of the high impact dollar items that are going to happen in the downtown corridor are coming out of the city or coming through different grant programs.
Thank you.
That's the final item on there, although I would like to add that we may have two late adds, if you will, to the agenda for next week that are being staffed now, or at least we're working on. The first is under Tom Zezer's Department, Public Works. We're going to likely ask for an update or a updated resolution for financial expenditures in regards to the undergrounding project with Dominion Power for Bluff Avenue. So this ties into the undergrounding of utilities to allow us to pave the way for the Greenway connector from Hammond's Ferry all the way up to the downtown corridor that's not in your notes. Just want to let you know that's something that we're going to try to get in front of the council next week. And again, what we're not doing is we're not allocating major funds for the Bluff Avenue connector until we've actually got a cost factor on the street from the public safety headquarters, because that comes out of CPSD 4, and the vast majority of the funding for Bluff Avenue is going to come out of CPSD 4 as well. But this council has previously authorized an initial outlay of funding for engineering services to do a survey and to figure out what the costs are for undergrounding utilities on Bluff Avenue, and that cost has risen somewhat, and so we're going to come back and ask for an increase in outlay for that particular project. And Tom will probably be able to talk to that a lot better than I can when he does his departmental updates. And then the second thing, which we may or may not get into next Monday, but we will attempt to, is we looked at the grant programs and tying into the amenities piece with Main Street. North Augusta Forward, just like any other grant, application process, has to not only buy the items, but then take delivery of those items in the same calendar year. And so, because the amenities have not yet been ordered, or they're going to be ordered shortly, their receipt will be into FY22, and that makes them ineligible for the grant. So what we're going to request is the ability to roll over those grant funds, the $6,000, as a capital projects fund outlay, because anything that's unspent from the previous year's budget will roll into the capital projects fund. So it does not change substantially anything we're doing as far as the total funding, because we originally, or the council had outlined $25,000 out of the capital projects fund, and then married that up with the $6,000 grant to North Augusta Forward to give us a $31,000 amenities budget. But in order to fully realize that $31,000, we're just going to have to add a council resolution to allow us to expend those funds in the next calendar year. Any other questions on our pretty loaded agenda?
No, sir. We're good.
Okay, with that, I will go ahead and move us directly into the department details, and we'll be led off by Cammie Hayes for finance.
All of our updates are related to utilities. We have a Cycle 1 disconnect this week on Wednesday and Thursday, the 15th and 16th. And then reminders related to Winter Bay sewer rates are still in effect for all of our utility customers. And our online payments will be going offline beginning December 29th through mid-January. And this is for our year-end closing procedures. And we'll put notifications on social media and the website.
Thank you, Cammie. Next will be followed by James Sutton from Public Services.
Good evening. Starting Tuesday, the 14th, and also on Thursday, the 14th, utility technicians will be working in the 400 block of East Bartontown Road, the westbound lane around Sherwin-Williams, making repairs to a manhole. They will have one of the lanes blocked off at the end of the day. As soon as the work is done, they will place a street cover over the manhole. There will be a bump in the road. Then they'll come back on Thursday and re-asphalt the area around that framing cover. We ask that people just drive with caution through that area. An update on the materials recovery facility fire that happened on the night of Thanksgiving. We have made some progress working with the insurance companies. That matter hadn't been settled yet, but I think in the near future, next couple of weeks, we'll know exactly where we're at on the finances for the replacement repairs. City staff is recycling. They've made good hard efforts of establishing a new workflow to recover North Augusta's recyclables. That's went real well, and the program will continue on, and our recycling program over time will recover fully 100%.
That's great, James.
Thank you, James. Next, Tommy Paradise for planning and development.
This coming Thursday, we'll have a planning commission meeting, and in case you haven't noticed, it's a rather large agenda this Thursday.
Tommy, thank you for sending us the information in advance now, so we can have the agenda and all that information. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that.
Next, we'll go to Public Safety with Chief Thomas.
Just a couple items of interest. Obviously, we are looking for a communications technician, which is a dispatcher, a very important part of public safety, and also 2 firefighters. So we will try to seek those individuals out and get those people hired as quickly as possible. Also, kind of an update on Fire Station 1. Obviously, it's moving along well. We had a kind of bump in the road. We had ordered some insulation. The insulation was not fire rated, so we are going to have to reorder. So that kind of pushes us back a little bit. But obviously, the materials are a big issue, not only for us, but for everybody. So I wanted to clear that up. I think I told you, you can see the building going up, the blocks are going up, but insulation is the big piece that we're trying to wait on so we can get the roof on. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. Next, we'll go to Carl from Parks, Rec, and Tourism, since Rick is out with a new addition to his family.
Rick welcomed a new granddaughter into the world this afternoon, so everything's going well with mom and baby, so he's excited about that. Our youth basketball season got underway last Friday. We have, as of this afternoon, we had almost 680 kids signed up, which is an uptick of about 28% from last year, so Activity Center is rocking and rolling right now. We got serving a lot of families down there, and it's good to be back up and running with basketball. Had a new employee start last week. His name's Tyler Roush. Tyler moved here from West Virginia, Marshall graduate, and he was involved in their intramural and recreation program as Marshall as well as an employee. But he's joined us, and he'll be doing youth athletics and man the activity center a little bit for us. So be sure to introduce yourself to him at the activity center. Had some new Christmas bows arrive last week. We last 8 got installed this afternoon. Appreciate the opportunity for allowing us to help dress the city up a little bit, Christmas spirit.
You'll make Commissioner Brooks and Carpenter very happy.
Well, good.
They aren't here, but I know they're excited about that.
Well, they're up and at 'em, so
Councilman, I mean, not Commissioner.
we're excited about that. And speaking about Councilwoman Carpenter, had an opportunity to go to the South Carolina State Parks and Rec Conference in Greenville last week for a couple of days, and Ms. Pat received a reward, very well deserved, for Volunteer of the Year for the state of South Carolina. And everybody in the state of South Carolina now knows how proud she is of North Augusta. She gave a great acceptance speech, and
That's awesome.
And we're really proud of her as well.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Carl. And next, we'll have Tom from Engineering and Public Works.
Just have to report that Streets and Drains was actually hopefully completed today, a sidewalk replacement in the 900 block of Georgia Avenue, approximately 40 feet, that was actually reported by Councilwoman Carpenter. So, like I said, they hopefully completed that work today. The Streets and Drains is also involved in a repair of a sinkhole related to a collapsed storm drain in the rear yards between 509 and 511 San Salvador. They are waiting for some materials and utility locates to be completed, and should get to work on that and hopefully completed this week as well. The only other item I had was again the proposed resolution that Mr. Clifford introduced, and just to clarify, that's just a request for some additional funding for engineering services. We are engaged with Cranston Engineering in the design of the Bluff Avenue streetscape, and following some preliminary presentations to this council, it was the consensus of council that we should pursue the undergrounding of the overhead utilities. So that work, the engineering portion of that work that is the city's responsibility to complete, was not part of the original proposal from Cranston Engineering. So there's just some about $25,000 in additional services for both engineering as well as construction phase services related to that undergrounding effort. That's what that's about.
You know, I think it's important for citizens to hear that, because I know we all get asked about the status, and people need to realize a lot of has to go in behind the scenes, and and a lot of legwork that you've done, Tom, your department. Thank you for that. So there's a lot of things that have to be done before we can actually put down the greenway. So thank you for that effort.
And part of this additional work is it's our goal to have all the overhead utilities out of the way before we even engage a contractor to perform the actual streetscape improvements. And so they're actually having to create essentially two separate sets of contract documents.
Thanks for your help.
Thanks, Tom. Last but not least, we'll have J.D. McCauley, our HR manager.
Good evening. I'm just going to do my usual plug for northaugusta.net/jobs for everyone out there still looking. We update those every Friday. Really proud of our hiring managers. They're taking their time to find quality new hires. As Carl mentioned, we got another good one for PRT. And as Chief mentioned, he's starting to get back up to full strength. So we're happy to announce that. And then just another reminder, we have this Thursday, if everyone is interested, they can tune in to our employee recognition ceremony this Thursday at 2 o'clock as we recognize 34 members of our city staff who are celebrating everything from 5 years to 50 years of service. So hopefully to see you guys there.
Thank you, JD.
So that concludes the department details and updates, and I will turn this.
Kelly's got something.
Sorry, Kelly.
You know, and I apologize, I should have picked up on this earlier, but I think it'd be better for me to just run this by you this evening. This goes back to the Main Street agreement, and I had not picked up at the very end that they have a hold harmless agreement in it. And historically, that is just something that the municipality will not enter into. Now, I know the Municipal Association prepared this document. They have the wording in here to the extent permitted by law, which is what has been attempted to be used a lot. I will talk this week to Eric Scheidel, who's the staff attorney of the Municipal Association. But in case you don't fully understand the issue about agreeing to this, the city has limits on our liability based upon the South Carolina Torts Claim Act. And anytime that we're sued or whatever, there's a limit as what our maximum exposure is. If we give a hold harmless agreement to a non-governmental agency, then we basically waive that limit that we have. And because you're saying if you get sued over something that we have any involvement with, we agree to hold you harmless, meaning we agree to indemnify you for whatever the amount of the judgment is you might get. And that's just not something that governmental agencies can do, because the next step, that is, if we are unlimited and we do that, that means that we pledge our ability to tax the public to cover whatever judgment might be rendered that we're responsible for. So the first 40 years I went to things sponsored by the Municipal Association, they impressed upon you, you do not enter into hold harmless agreements. Over the last 10 years, I've seen a little bit of this terminology, and I will tell you, I think sometime in the last year or so, we agreed to a hold harmless agreement with another governmental agency. The theory being that if we did that, still our exposure was not above what it normally was. There are, and Cammie had talked to me a few times about all of the financing documents, and we always get these requests for hold harmless agreements, which we have adamantly refused to include. And in fact, there are state Supreme Court rulings where governmental agencies have tried to get a waiver and get beyond this, and now these cases are 10, 15, 20 years old, and they basically said you can't do it. I know that there appears to be some protection saying to the extent permitted by law, but it always concerns me just how well you identify that and what could happen. So what I'm telling you, I'm going to talk with them this week, see if there's any change that we can do to that would make us more comfortable or be able to advise you why we think we can do it. I think we've limited, we haven't used just purely the extent permitted by law, but I think even in the one where we agreed to the hold harmless, we set parameters on it at that time. So just, I felt like I needed to advise you about that tonight in case next week there's something different with it.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate that.
Sir, that concludes the department detail updates, and I will turn the meeting back over to Mayor Williams for Mayor's Matters.
Yeah, I've only got, appreciate it. I only have one thing. I'm going to recognize verbally the brave men and women who were involved in the incident last Thursday. But before I do, I think it's important to say a few words as mayor representing your elected officials on city council, and I'm talking to the live streams, there's already citizens here. We all know what amazing city we live in. It became clear to me after last Thursday when I saw the positive post and heard from so many people that said what a wonderful job our public safety did handling the situation. And I agree completely. And I know we have the best public safety department. But I also believe this community loves, appreciates, and supports our public safety like no other community does. And part of that reason is that we, you and I, as citizens, know so many of these officers. You go to church with them, you're in civic and booster clubs with them, your kids, their kids are in school together, you socialize with them, you see the giving of themselves to help others in settings when they're off duty. They are real men and women who love this community, and they only want to serve in the best way for their community. An event like Thursday in some places would have split the community or at least caused doubt about the safety of that community. I am so proud of North Augusta citizens because you know, like each of us on this council, that we live in a safe town. All communities have crime, that's just a reality, but ours is nothing compared to most. Thursday night was not an indictment against any area of our community. Our downtown is safe. This event happened downtown, but not because of anything in regards to downtown. I cannot wait to walk the streets of downtown at Third Thursday this week, and I enjoy the festivities, and I hope you'll come out and join me. The man who was arrested was a criminal who does not live in North Augusta. He was a criminal before the incident happened. We had no citizens killed, and that is because of the amazing restraint that our officers showed. The leadership of our public safety begins with Chief John Thomas, his three captains, Billy Lucky, Charles Williams, and Joe Count. They work hard to ensure their officers and dispatchers are ready for all types of situations, even a worst-case scenario like we had. The officers' training, their calmness, their professionalism in handling this situation ensured no citizens died. Job well done, and God bless each of them. I would like to now verbally recognize the individuals and other law enforcement organizations that helped us in this instance so we can thank them. And if you see any of these folks or you know them, please reach out to them if you have not already. First of all, Lieutenant Aaron Fittery. Aaron, unfortunately, did get hit by a bullet, but it was not life-threatening. I spoke to him this weekend and expect speedy recovery, but we lift Aaron up for that. Sergeant Andrew Harris, Corporal William Mays, PSO Gavin Rangel, PSO Alex Crawford, PSO George Geimer, PSO Jesse Suggs, PSO John Rutland, Investigator Niles Mennenecker, Investigator Travis Smith, Dispatcher April Scott, Dispatcher Dottie Price, Dispatcher Beth Mims. These three ladies had a lot to coordinate. And then the government agencies that helped us, Aiken County Sheriff's Department, South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, South Carolina Highway Patrol, the ATF Task Force, Edgefield County Sheriff's Department, and Jackson Police Department. On behalf of the City Council, we thank all of these agencies, but particularly these individuals who do a fantastic job, and I just want to give them a round of applause if you'll join me. And that's all I've got, unless anything you have, Ms. Clifford.
No, Mr. Mayor, that's all from the staff this evening.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you.